Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, I just want to talk about three things. And the first thing I want to talk about is how September has always been like, um, I don't know, sort of like fall season. Um, and the beginning of a school year. Anyway, in this part of the world. It's a nice time. Like, I know not everybody likes to have weather talk, but I like weather talk, so it's actually very nice to watch the changes and to see when leaves do get like blown away. Um, and I guess because of what's happening now, I feel like seasons help us um, scale the things we do, like in that season, and in a sense, can definitely reduce the fear and all the anxiety that's been caused by just hearing about the pandemic and stuff. Um, so I think one thing that we can do is to make a simple 4 month project, um, which would kind of get our minds off of the fear that might have taken over the day and the night for some people. So whatever that project would be, um, instead of feeling like I need to get into a project and I need to finish it, it can be like a project that's a 4 month long project, even if it's just paint a painting or anything very simple and domestic and things like that. Um, One thing I didn't know was, well, in general, like the the vegetables and fruits that we do eat, um, some of them are, I guess, seasonal. Some of them we made them seasonal. So that's also something nice to focus on. Um, the second thing I wanted to talk about um, is where we're at in terms of like the lunar month. And the lunar month is pretty defined by the moon. So, as opposed to the calendar that's Gregorian, which I feel like I actually don't remember, but it's like it's based on like history or some kind of events. Um, but the lunar month is based on the moon. So it's a more defined calendar to follow because it's um, universe based, it's not human based. Um, so we are in the first month, I guess, of the lunar calendar. But again, like I don't know its entire history, so I don't know at what point this was deemed the first month. What matters is that it's a calendar that um, is regulated based on like the moon. So, and the moon is not something that any animal or human can change. Um, we can only look at it. So it's pretty cool that it's like a defined calendar, like I said, and it's not social based or like whatever mammal based, I guess. So it's not owned by anyone. It doesn't circulate around any group of people or events or things like that. So um yeah, check it out if you don't know about it. Um and in this month there were events that are important to um, Muslims and people who came before Muslims. Um, but the event that happened in this month um, is interpreted objectively, I think, by Islam again, as opposed to um, socially or anything like that. So, also something to look into. Um, Having again like seasons and months um, help us in realigning whenever we do get um, misaligned or thrown out of balance for any reason. Um, so because I used to like start getting bothered by the word goals, like everyone talks about goals, 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 and it's like, okay, like we achieve these goals and then your excitement kind of drops sometimes. And um, I think what would be cool instead of like having goals and then completely like falling um, and losing all motivation once these goals are reached, we could um, basically have recurring goals that are sustainable and that are our own. and fits our needs rather than, I guess, whimsical things, desires, other people's goals, all that stuff. Um, in a sense, you just listen to yourself. And I don't mean worshiping ourselves, but I mean just honoring yourself and seeing what it needs and then putting your own goals. So that way, like when you do reach the goal, you actually want to go ahead and reach the next goal and you're excited as opposed to um, falling apart. um, Not to sound like I'm exacerbating things, but um, this might be the first time that I do live through a pandemic that is not somewhere else or is not um, scalable, like for my tolerance and resilience and stuff like that. So this is the first one that I'm like, oh wow, um, this is not an easy thing to go through, um, as opposed to before, sort of hearing about things in, like I said, like in other places. um, and yeah. Uh, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was this concept of switch or making the transition from linguistics to language. So this is by academic field of study, linguistics, and the reason why I kind of felt stuck with this field is because it's very much talking about bits and pieces of language. It's not really, for me anyway, in my experience, it was not bringing, um, it wasn't really bringing real life meaning to me. It was just nuts and bolts of analyzing your own language and analyzing people's languages and helping improve it and stuff, which is great and fine and where I want to circulate. Um, but if you might be considering this field of study, which is great, nothing bad to say about it, absolutely nothing. Um, I would maybe take more sociology and psychology with it, um, in order to do something with it holistically. Um, I think I took only one course in psychology, and I remember taking it and complaining that I had to take it because it's not directly related to linguistics. Um, but now I understand why, like they did that because you kind of come out of your bubble, like the sciencey bubble of linguistics. Um, however, however, um, you could still like benefit from taking all the linguistic stuff and not getting into language because it still feels like two different fields. Like if you're in a place where people can benefit from your linguistics work, um, you would know at what point you want to refer this person to someone who will help them with their language as a whole, and let's call it um, I guess the I don't know, protocols of language or um, manners, I guess, with people, and how to gauge your language based on what is needed and what is deemed, like I said, respectful, all of these things, right? So, however, again, if you get into this part where you're coaching and leading people's social language, um, it does come off sometimes as a judgmental um, assessment, which is sort of non-existent when you're doing a linguistic assessment, right? Because linguistic assessment is just talking about their nuts and bolts. You're not saying to someone, um, you don't know how to talk to people, or you don't know how to respect people with your language, right? Or you don't know this or that from your own perspective, as someone in the field. Um, and so that's a different sort of place of learning and a different sort of rabbit hole because you're now branching into other things, right? You're branching into um, how this person talks and how other people see it, and the other people, uh, how they see it in terms of where their relationship is. And then that's a different kind of coaching and stuff because, now you're kind of, I don't know how to say it, but like giving yourself a right or status where what you're observing in that person is no longer a personal observation of that person's linguistics. Like I said, it's more like social, familial, professional, and then with circles outside these, and that would be the public, right? So um, if you are going to go into something like that, then I feel like if someone does want to benefit from your field, you can just clarify to them who you are and where you're coming from, so that they would have, if they do get a sense of judgmental um, feedback from your assessment, it's coming from this perspective, or this kind of what do you call it, from this view, right? So that if they do leave you um, and get these assessments or judgments or whatever, they're not uh, to be um, globalized, like for them, like it's not to be uh, generalized and a judgment that is 100% true, right? And that happens with people who kind of are still working on their um, confidence levels, or I guess understanding of their um, creation, like their themselves, and also understanding of the world, understanding of the creator of the world, like all of these things, right? Still working on that, and we're all working on that. However, that's why this field is subhanallah. It's a field that is rewarding, but it does kind of get into, it does get under people's skins sometimes, and it's something that it requires you as the whatever, like operator, leader, therapist in this stuff, in this field, to observe yourself, right? Like it can't work one way. It can't. It won't work. It's not an external job. It's a both way job. Um, yeah, and that's all I wanted to say about this. In fact, I got feedback that um, I am too deep into the linguistics rabbit hole, that my language is not clear when it comes to, I don't know, I guess like social gatherings that are not based on science. So uh, that's just something to keep in mind if you do get into this field. Um, I do have like stubborn tendencies, so uh, I still want to like stay in linguistics. Why? Because you do get uh, people to help who don't want language um, help or assessment and stuff like that. So I can separate what I uh, provide in a class setting and a clinical setting um, from my own social life. Yeah, hope this makes sense. Um, just one last note about that. Uh, you can still kind of do, you can still like approach linguistics from a bird's eye view, the language view, the like social language stuff and acceptance, all of the stuff. You can do this. Um, but what you would want to learn objectively again is, which would be interesting, I guess, like to learn about what it objectively means to be a social creature, what it means to have siblings, what it means, right? Because this is what it affects, right? Like the language um, field of like linguistics would be looking at this person's social surrounding and where there might be a need for language improvement. And this is where uh, we cannot ignore, like, we're not 100% individuals, which kind of tends to happen in Western living. You become super focused on yourself, and then sometimes, uh, I don't know, I've met people who say they don't know their siblings, they don't know their uh, parent, one or two of them, they don't know them, things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that we would be bringing culture back into this individual if you're working with someone who is raised in the West, um, is extremely individualistic, and it's hurting their language. If it's doing that, then um, what am I going to say? You start to observe them individually, um, and learn about their own family, like who their siblings are, how many siblings there are, and most importantly, like who is parent one, who is parent two, and you're observing now the bigger picture of stuff in order to help them and stuff like that. Um, but you can also learn about the social stuff uh, objectively and not subjectively, right? Not based on what they're saying to you about their siblings, not uh, about what their culture has taught them about their siblings and their parents and uncles and aunts and whatever, like bosses, all this stuff, right? Because if it was intact, that person would not have come to you as a language for language help. And in this case, we're talking about language branching into sociology, psychology, and stuff like that. I hope this kind of makes sense. Uh, it's an issue I had. Like, I was super focused in linguistics, and I did not uh, communicate the way you usually do, like with other people. And I got that feedback, and I'm fine with it. Uh, I have not, like, I guess I could be watching like mm, what it means to have healthy boundaries with other people and health, especially healthy boundaries in terms of language. Um, as long as I'm not overstepping anyone else, then I'm happy with this field. I'm happy with linguistics. And the next kind of step, inshallah, would be to get into communicative disorders and become an assistant in that. Um, and no, I don't want to get into general therapy. I don't want to get into that stuff. All right. Have a nice fall. Have a nice, um, I don't know, a few months of fall. Try to enjoy it. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.